Listener advisory. This is just a stupid podcast we're doing for shits and giggles. So we apologize to any of you poor bastards that have to be subjected to, well, you know, all of this. If you stick around long enough, I'm sure you'll see what I mean. If you find dark humor and discussing awful shit with a bit of levity distasteful, well, how do you exist? Seriously, you must have a secret, and I don't even want it. But really, this podcast will not be for you, and you'd probably be better off listening to any of the more somber-toned true crime podcasts that are available. For those of you still listening, you sick and twisted fucks, welcome to the worst. If we did this right, hopefully you won't like yourself by the end, but you'll laugh. Hello, and welcome to The Worst, the podcast of everything that is the worst. I'm your host, Mark, and sitting next to me is my lovely wife and co-host, Gina.
Hello.
And together we are perpetually Mental Illness Theater.
Woo!
Here we are. What is this, Friday morning? This is weird. Friday morning.
Is it Friday morning?
Yeah, 11 a.m. We're on edibles. Yeah. Strangely enough, I didn't even notice. I started a new job this week.
Yeah, you did.
At a pallet factory 2 weeks after doing the Joe Matheny story where he got a job at a pallet factory and then started serial killing.
My husband leaves every night carrying a hammer and I don't know where he goes.
24
he
hours.
Goes home in the morning. It's fine.
I'm breaking down pallets.
I mean, I believe him, but if the paychecks don't come in, then I'll have
I got little cuts over my arm.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Scratches on your face.
Right.
It's fine, though.
Hi, kitty. Don't know if that made a sound, but if it did, that was Glitchy, the kitty.
Yeah, no, I sniffed the mic.
I found that very funny about the pallet, because I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. I was like, oh, yeah,
I was dying from the minute you had the interview. Just like, are you fucking serious?
This is funny. I like this. This is great. So how are you doing this afternoon? This morning. This very strange morning.
It's been a long, strange 24 hours for me, but I'm doing really well now.
Yes, because you had a whole fiasco with my phone also died. And my lovely wife, Gina, decided, well, you know, Mark's going to go to sleep.
You're long overdue for an upgrade. You got to go to bed. You had to go to work.
It should take about 2 hours, right?
Tops. From door to door, you know?
4.5 hours. My wife came home at 6:30 and crawled into bed. Said, I hate fucking...
dead.
I am done with the world today. I'm glad we have phones. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
So you want to hear a story?
I'm definitely ready for a story.
Well, you're ready for one, are you?
Yeah.
Coffee in hand.
Yes.
Okay. That's a good thing, because today we're covering a man that was basically a terrifying, unrepentant terrorist for the majority of his adult life. But because he was an anti-communist and anti-Castro guy, he got away with it. He got to skate on it for virtually his entire life. This is going to be a big rant session. There's going to be, I hate everything about this man. We might piss off some people with this one, because today we're doing Orlando Bosch, who literally is one of the worst people we've ever... I can't even believe this story is real. Like, the more I got into it, like, I knew the basics of it, and then you get into the nuts and bolts of it, and it was like, holy shit, this is insanity.
How did this happen?
It happened because if you're anti-Castro and you get the backing and cover of America, you can get away with anything. Because, this guy is truly unrepentant. And he served some time, but not nearly as much as you would want.
Or expect.
And in a backwards way, which you'll see is just like, really? That's how he served his time? Really?
Really?
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. So today we're doing Orlando Bosch.
Tell me the terrible story.
Oh, it's so fun. I have the wrong one up. Woo! Why didn't that open? Oh, I know what I did.
It's been a long day for you too.
No. Orlando Bosch. There's the one. Let's open the actual fucking file. I'm doing it from memory today. This is going to be fun. Woo! Get the edibles.
We already did.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to light this up. What about myself? The story of Orlando Bosch can be used as a template for the old saying, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, or as an example of America's hypocrisy when it comes to terrorists that attack America's decided enemies.
Can I just say before we get too deep into this, the only Orlando that I can place a face to in reference is Orlando Bloom. So
The entire time I was doing this whole thing, all I can see is Orlando Bloom
The
and
terrorist.
pirates.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Caribbean. Seriously, I'm glad you said it because the entire fucking time that's all I could see.
that's all I picture.
Yep.
I know it's not him, but
I should show you a picture of him when he's old.
in the movie version in my head,
I can see that.
Bosch is played by Bloom.
It works for me.
All right.
At a time when terrorist mania was sweeping through the U.S. in the early 2000s, Orlando Bosch, who had a resume in terrorist acts that make most others pale in comparison, was allowed to live freely and roam around until he died in 2011. Had he been attacking American interest, there's no doubt Bosch would have been hung by his heels in Guantanamo Bay and beaten for sport.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. During his life, he is known to have sent countless letter bombs, was caught with weapons-grade explosives multiple times, tried to shoot a Polish tanker ship with a bazooka from a bridge in Miami.
That's just casual, though.
Just casual. He helped assassinate at least one political opponent in spectacular fashion. And that's not even the worst thing he was involved in.
Jesus Christ.
But, because, like I mentioned in the start, because he was anti-Castro and thus anti-communist, not only did he get away with it, Bosch was treated as a hero by the anti-Castro crowd, especially in Miami. Wow, did he ever have a lot of backing in that city.
Shocker.
And it's just amazeballs. Now, Orlando Bosch Avila was born on August 18th, 1926. I don't have the horoscope for him.
Oh, no.
What is his horoscope?
What was the date?
August 18th.
Oh, he's a Leo.
He's a Leo.
He's a fiery Leo.
Mhm.
Just like my mom. That's why I know that one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why I know 4 really well, and now I know yours. Yeah. But I don't know. We just make fun of it because we're terrible people.
Yeah, right?
We're so California.
We don't believe in it.
We don't believe in anything. We're horrible.
Right.
But he was born on August 18th, 1926, in the small village of Portorillo in eastern Cuba. His mother was a teacher and his father, an ex-policeman, was a restaurateur. Sorry. You gotta make it a tour.
I wasn't going to correct you.
I caught it. I'm my own grammar Nazi.
I'm a good wife.
You are a good wife. I'll note it, but not say anything.
Exactly.
Yes.
Throw it at him later. Remember that?
You mispronounced that. Bosch enjoyed a comfortable upbringing despite growing up in a rural, economically depressed area of Cuba. But to be fair, pretty much at this time, everything in Cuba.
I was just going to say, where wasn't?
Yeah. Because what is this? 26?
Yeah.
So he's growing up right in the Depression and into the Second World War.
Yeah. It's a rough time.
For everyone.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be good no matter what. But probably not in the best spot.
Yeah. No, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Bosch showed intelligence at an early age, and he was accepted to the University of Havana in 1946 as a medical student. So he's pretty fucking bright. He comes from...
Yeah, I mean, if you get accepted as a medical student.
Yeah. Smarter than me. You don't want me banging around in there. You've seen Dr. Nick, right? Yeah. And it was while he was in Havana that he first met Fidel Castro. Hey, Fidel. And this would become his lifelong enemy, but in the beginning, they were close friends. They were born just days apart, and Bosch was the head of the medical student body, and Castro was the head of the law student body, so they spent a lot of time hanging out, because you're the heads of main student bodies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the two especially bonded over their dislike of what was the Batista regime that ruled over Cuba until the revolution in 59. These guys, the Batista regime, like most things in Central, America and the Caribbean at the time, could have its own episode. But to put it very bluntly, Batista was a pawn of the Americans who made sure every bit of land was owned by American interests and whatnot, and he ruled with the usual iron fist. You know, you don't need too many details on that, but if you were any kind of threat, they were coming down on you.
Oh, yeah.
So Batista ruled from 1940 to 59, so right during the prime of him becoming aware politically.
Of course.
Yeah. So basically, Batista was so fucking brutal. He laid the framework for the Cuban Revolution in 1959, where this is where Castro overthrows the Batista regime with very few men because Batista was that shitty. If you showed up with 100 dedicated men, you were going to overthrow the government, even with the U.S. backing you. You have to be a pretty shitty ruler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, here's everything. Here's the training. Here's weapons. Here's all the money you want. Literally, Castro shows up with 100 guys being like, yeah, this is fucked up. You fucked up this country that badly. And it actually worked. Batista was terrible, is basically what I'm saying. So, like, Bosch actually participated in the Cuban Revolution on the side of Castro. So even the revolution, he was on the side of them. They're not enemies yet. And he was actually made the governor of a province when Castro came to power. So even after the revolution, in power, still buddies. You get to be a governor.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only so many of those spots.
Yeah.
So what goes wrong? That's when the U.S. stops backing Cuba. Castro runs out of money. He looks around and basically says, somebody, anybody, we're going to die here. USSR says, we'll do it. You have to say you're communist, not socialist. Castro does. That's when Bosch turns against him. Now, there's also one thing that I saw rumored. Couldn't see for sure because it's happening during a revolution. But there is a rumor that Bosch took 2 prisoners that he wanted executed, and he was stopped by Castro and basically those authorities in the execution, and that really turned him against Castro.
I can see that.
So you put together both of those. Castro does go to the communist side, goes to the USSR, and doesn't let this... And you'll see, this guy's a hot-headed asshole. So in battle, he gets 2 guys that he wants to execute, and he's told he can't. This really seems to stick in his craw.
Which, yeah.
It sticks in his craw for decades. And decades. And decades.
Stews on it, does he?
He's
a stewer.
He's got a list. But there's only one guy on it. Everything bad in the world came from Castro, apparently. Because that's...
So saith.
So saith fucking Bosch. Now, like many of Castro's original supporters, Bosch was disillusioned by Castro's turn to communism, and he participated in a rebellion later to try to overthrow Castro. It didn't work, and he ended up going back to America, or not back to, but for the first time to America, absolutely fucking pissed. Because... I mean, put that all together. I helped you in the rebellion. We took over. You've turned communist, it looks like. Now I'm trying to rebel against you. Now I can't get anywhere.
Now I'm out, but I still hate you.
Really fucking hate you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the failure of the rebellion, Bosch fled to Miami before being captured. Because he was going to be captured. This was a shitty rebellion. Really bad idea. He set up a business as a pediatrician because... he did get his degree from Havana University, right. And by the early 60s, he had actually been in contact already with the CIA. They, not on the payroll yet, but they're, you could be useful for us.
They had coffee.
Right, they saw you could be a useful asset. They had a coffee.
Yeah.
A little sit-down date.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hey.
Hey. It's an afternoon date.
Exactly.
At the coffee shop. Might have a muffin.
Yeah.
We'll split a muffin and have a coffee.
Yes.
Take my own goddamn muffin. I'm not like that. We both get muffins.
I get my own muffin?
Right.
Aww.
And this is the height of the Cold War, too. Of course you get your own muffin.
I know.
Possibly.
Maybe, if I'm good.
Ugh.
That was a proper sound.
If I'm a good girl. But yeah, this was the height of the Cold War, too. This is like early 60s. They just had the fucking Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Scare. Everything's bad here. So they're kind of snooping around, giving him a little sniff the afternoon date.
Right?
Yeah. Now, because he was...
Coffee.
Little coffee. But because he was still upset about the U.S. government's refusal to back the rebellion he had been a part of, Bosch, he didn't really respond too much at first to the CIA, and he actually missed the Bay of Pigs. He thought it was a bad idea, which it turned out it was.
I mean, he was right.
He was very right.
Like, super right.
Mm.
But hey.
Yeah, because very short on Bay of Pigs, I mean, if you don't... The very, very short is Cuban exiles in America are trained by the CIA, told to invade. And the part that's never talked about is they're told they'll get air cover. And they're in the boats and they're hitting the fucking shores, and that's when they decided, President Kennedy, that if we do air cover, we're involved.
Yeah.
We're implicated. Like, so he backs out and it goes to hell. And just a little history side note, just to totally geek out. We're Canadian.
Yeah.
We've heard of the raid on Dieppe.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what happened to us too. That raid was supposed to have full air cover, and very late in the game, the British asked the Canadians, hey, if it were to be the day of the raid and the weather was shit and we couldn't get air cover out, would you go ahead with it? And the Canadians were like, yeah, we're eager, we do it, we pull it off. So they decided, well, we don't need fucking air cover for this. Just send them in. And it turned in 6,000 troops went in, 4,000 didn't come out. Yeah. 2/3 were either captured, killed, or wounded.
You know.
So, never trust, we'll hit the beaches, you cover the air, because sometimes...
They're not going to cover the air.
They back out at the last moment, so you hit the beaches with the dick in the hand. Yay!
People deciding they don't need air cover just because they said they do it anyway reminds me so much of what's going down in workplaces right now, where they're super understaffed and people are just working like their asses off to cover, multiple positions. And they're just like, oh, well, we're still making money, so we're good.
Absolutely true. It's so true, because I mentioned the one cleaning job that I did at the gym.
Yeah.
And I was it was a mall, and there were different places and whatnot, and one place was a gym, and we got a new manager, and I had been there for like almost 2 years, and she was there for a month, and was like, oh, this is a one-person job. And I was like, I've been here for almost 2 years, and it's always been 2 people here. And she was just like, nope. It was like, huh, that's interesting. I disagree. But here we are. Yeah. So instead of the Bay of Pigs, Bosch stayed behind in Miami, and he started setting up anti-Castro groups. Get some support. You've got a lot of people in Miami who were pissed who had to flee Cuba because they lost their interest. So that's what he starts doing. And he sets up one, I'm not going to try to say this insane name, but it's called the MIRR. Very popular in Miami, and he pulls a ton of pissed off Cubans who just fucking hate Castro. So he starts making, money and networking.
Yeah.
Well, the things you need to get to be a proper terrorist.
Yes.
Bosch does this. Now, this group, the MIRR, worked with the CIA. They planned to infiltrate Cuba and conduct small-scale bombings in the country, and Bosch claimed to have orchestrated at least 11 attacks on government properties through this group. All right.
That's a small number.
You're at a dozen attacks.
Yeah.
And also during this time, which will come up a little later, he also spent time at Fort Benning in, that's where they have the School of the Americas.
Okay.
And
I was going to say, why does Fort Benning ring a bell for me? That's why, because I would have heard you telling me.
Yep, the School of the Americas is, and we do have an episode of it ready.
Yeah.
And it will come out at some time. But the School of Americas, in very short, is where the CIA trained everyone in Central and South America how to be authoritarian to the core with their governments, just crack down on everyone. And he was trained there in the early to mid 60s. I forget the actual date. I know I had it written down, but I'm fucking lazy. But anyway, he's definitely trained there, and I know it's Fort Benning, but I'm not sure if he's School of America. So,
fair enough.
But it comes up later, blah, blah, blah. And around this time, Bosch started to expand his repertoire from
That's a really good sound. Man, he was an engine trying to start for a second.
So he expanded from trying to foment revolution in Cuba to full-on international terrorism. He started mailing letter bombs to the embassies of countries that recognized or backed Cuba. So, like Canada.
Yeah, you know, hey.
Hey. And Bosch would later claim to have sent hundreds of these bombs during his terrorist career, which I have no... It's like his pastime. If he has nothing else to do...
He's making a letter bomb and sending it.
He's almost like an internet troll just spamming letter
Some
bombs.
people do crosswords, he sends letter bombs.
Seriously. Fuck, that's literally what he does when he has no bigger things to do.
It's his needlepoint.
Yeah, it really is. On the local level, Bosch extorted Cuban-owned businesses to either fund his terrorist organizations, or they had to face the consequences. Businesses that refused to pay were routinely bombed in retaliation. So not even roughing a guy up, they're burning fucking places down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't pay for a terrorist group. We'll leave you in cinders.
Yeah.
Jesus. Bosch isn't a mellow guy.
No. I don't think he spent a lot of time in a hammock.
I feel like he needed more hugs as a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Jesus,
God.
man.
And as an adult, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, seriously. Wait, did I skip a practice? I'm really high. Okay. Now, before Bosch hit his true level of crazy, there were multiple warning signs that this fuck would do anything to hurt Castro's regime. No matter how stupid, ridiculous, or over the top it was. This is the 60s. he gets creative.
He's a hippie terrorist.
He is not a hippie in any fucking... He's an angry Cuban in Miami, just raging about Castro and learning about explosives, is what it seems like his 60s are. And Bosch had no trouble getting funding for his anti-Castro groups, as South Florida in the 60s, it was flooded with money, mostly from the CIA, focused on getting rid of Castro. One of the biggest employers in the entire fucking area was this thing called JM Wave, a CIA station in charge of covert operations in Cuba. Hundreds of front companies were run through this company, JM Wave, and it eventually employed fucking 400 full-time CIA staff and about 15,000 Cuban exiles. This CIA front fucking umbrella group
is massive.
Employed 15,000 fucking exiled. Oh my god. Yeah. And the budget, yearly budget for this fucking umbrella group, $50 million.
Oh my god.
Now, JM Wave also had access to all the cutting-edge weapons the CIA could provide.
In the 60s.
Yep.
Which, I mean, compared to now,
It makes me think of Archer in a way.
Yes.
Like, not that the tech is old, but the way it's set old. Yeah. And along with that is with the expertise needed to use more of the complex weapons. Because there's one funny part, I didn't really get into it, but Jesus Christ, this guy trying to figure out how to use C4.
Oh, jeez.
Fuck. So there were it seemed like there were just points where he's making, like, letter bombs, not even letter bombs, but C4 that's just, oh, that's C4, because I don't know how to detonate it. So you just get the package. Huh. Huh. I mean, the timer's going off, and it's a chunk of clay-looking shit. I'm assuming I should be dead.
Right?
Yeah.
Something was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. Which, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't know what to do with C4.
No.
It's, it's relatively hard shit to use, but, yeah, thank God I'll never need to.
Yeah.
Hey,
right.
Funny about that. So from 1959 to 1968, Bosch was arrested multiple times on explosive charges, and this wasn't being caught with a fucking blasting cap or something.
No, obviously
This
not.
is not minor.
It's not fireworks.
It's not an M80 down the toilet. First, he was fired from his job at a Miami hospital for being caught storing explosives at the hospital. Working as a pediatrician with children, he got caught with explosives in the fucking hospital. I mean,
Oh my god.
when you're working your shift at the hospital, where do you hide your bombs?
Children's morgue.
There you go. Jesus Christ. I mean, if something's gonna blow up, technically it's the best thing.
Yeah, they're already dead.
You're just scattering, you're not killing.
Yeah, just throw it in an empty drawer, you know.
Oh, God.
You didn't like where I went with that?
No. All I can think of is the boathouse of Dean Coral now. Just the sludge. Yeah. It's one of those joints. I'm just grabbing one. Whichever. Doesn't even matter at this point.
I already can't see.
No.
I have no idea how you're reading.
Am I?
I don't know.
I'm going by the pictures.
Maybe he's just making it up as he goes along.
In 1964, Bosch was arrested for driving through downtown Miami rush hour traffic while towing torpedoes behind his car. Now, it might have been one. I think it was more. But what in the fucking hell was he thinking? Just...
Does he have a submarine? Like...
Just go to my
what the fuck is
torpedo.
happening?
I can only imagine when he's pulled over, too. Like, there's no word of it. But I imagine he was just so cool about it, because it doesn't seem like it's anything to him.
Ah.
So I'm assuming this poor Florida cop pulls this guy over. And he's just like, what? What's up?
What's the speed?
You want to see my license?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
I need these.
Yeah.
Taking them to the hospital. That's where I keep them. Put them in the morgue. Just slide them in the fucking body lockers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. The year after that, Bosch's home was raided and he was charged with smuggling bombs out of the U.S. In 1966, Bosch was stopped at a random roadblock and 6 100-pound dynamite bombs were found in his car. That's 600 pounds
Of dynamite.
of bombs, like ready to go. 600 fucking pounds. Like, that's enough. That's going to be dragging in the back end that you're going to know there's something very heavy in that car.
Right?
Yep.
Jesus Christ, man.
When asked what the fuck he was doing with 600 pounds of explosives in his car, Bosch explained he was taking them to, quote, a secret base where there was a boat we could use to bomb Castro. That was his explanation.
I mean, we weren't gonna bomb y'all, so what's up?
Yeah.
Can we go do this?
You're not going to take it from us, are you?
Yeah, right? I mean, y'all don't like them either, so... what's up?
I mean, you shouldn't take it. We got it from your CIA, so
Yeah.
I mean, that seems pretty fucked up to me.
Yeah, they're just gonna give it back.
It's the circle of life right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you can take it from us, but, I mean, 2
Well,
weeks from now,
we'll see it
this is
again.
all going down.
Now, apparently, Bosch got little punishment for either of these incidents, or all of them, because I think there was 3 there, because 2 years later, in 1968, he was still free, and he really found himself as a terrorist. Now he's finding his groove. He formed a group called Cuban Power,
Cool.
and they went on a prolific bombing campaign. And in a few months, Cuban Power bombed TV stations, consulates, and damaged a ship in Miami with an underwater mine.
They should have thought through their initials, though.
Cuban Power,
Yeah,
CP.
you don't want to be CP.
What's CP?
Child porn.
Oh, geez, well, that shows you how little I know about child porn. I didn't even know that was the acronym.
Yep.
Yeah. Either that or I hide it well. Hey. Hey, what's that? I have no idea.
I'm a full-grown adult woman, so I'm pretty sure you're into that.
Yeah, right.
Not kids.
The whole adult thing works for me. The wife thing works for me. I know.
Yeah.
It's disgusting,
I know, it's
isn't it? We're doing it wrong.
We are.
I don't think so. But all this paled in comparison to the group's crowning achievement, the bombing of 4 sites in Los Angeles in the span of 17 minutes on July 19th, 1968. And I'm pretty sure I didn't jot it down, but these are usually consulates or airports they like to hit, like airport, or airline ticket agencies, shit like that. 70s, very 70s stuff.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Less than 2 months later, Bosch did something that can only happen in Florida or in a panhandle. Once again, in rush hour traffic, Bosch went to the MacArthur Causeway over the Biscayne Bay in Miami, which is an area that overlooks the port facilities of the city.
Oh yeah, I can picture this spot in my head. It's great.
Yep. When Bosch got there, he pulled his car over to the side, and he grabbed a homemade 57mm bazooka from his car. Bosch then took aim at a Polish freighter called the Polenka, docked in the water beneath, and shot a freaking rocket at it.
Just casually in rush hour, you know.
Broad daylight.
Fucking Christ.
Now, I've been thinking about this. The only thing I can think of on a bridge that I've seen is the one, I think it was Taiwan, where it was the plane. Where
Yes.
it just kind of tips over and goes to the... I don't know what would be worse. Seeing that happen or seeing some freak, like seeing the whole thing, you're driving up and you see this guy fucking up
Stroll
onto the
up.
shoulder.
Yeah.
Because you know it's heavy, it's homemade. Going to the edge, what the fuck? And then a goddamn missile coming.
That might be scarier. Because at least the plane's an accident. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
But,
Who's this guy gonna shoot next?
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Does he have another rocket?
How
I
accurate
want to
is
get
that
the fuck
rocket?
away from this, yeah.
God.
I don't want to be here.
Man, what a bad day.
Yeah.
Just other... Oh, fuck.
There's a lot of interesting dinner conversations that night from drivers.
Yeah,
when
how
they
was your
got
drive
home.
home, honey? Well,
Let me fucking tell you.
it was a little rough. Bosch later explained that he attacked the ship because he believed it was going to Cuba. He was arrested shortly after, and this time he actually got a bit of jail time for this brazen attack, because apparently that's what it takes.
Yeah, it takes shooting a homemade rocket through a,
Off the bridge.
Yeah, you know.
Not even from
We
concealed.
can't let you just go home tonight.
You couldn't pick a less concealed, like,
Yeah.
just you're there, man. We know which way you're going to try to escape. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. So despite being caught shooting a homemade RPG at a neutral country's freighter, and being suspected in at least 30 other acts of terrorism between 1960 and 1968, Bosch only received 10 years in total for his crime. Yeah. And to me, 30 acts seems super low, considering how prolific he is. Because, I mean, an attack could be a letter bomb that,
Yeah, right? That's an attack.
that's an attack. Doesn't matter if it just blows up other paper.
Right.
That's an attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of these letter bombs don't injure anyone.
No, but
it's
still.
just the threat
Yeah.
of, I wouldn't want to work there.
No, you should still catch charges for each and every one of those if you're doing it.
Do you want to be the clerk at that consulate?
No. Do you want to fucking be the postal worker scanning these things
No,
through?
Jesus, no.
No.
It might make you go postal.
Mm,
I miss it. Remember the 80s?
I remember.
I remember because we're old. Now, as it turned out, Bosch had developed quite a following in Miami through his outspoken and violent opposition to Castro, and this following was strong enough to make sure Bosch served even less than the 10 years he was sentenced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because, 10 years?
That's a long time.
That's
you can't
too
keep
much.
them that long.
And this following wasn't just large in numbers, as many high-powered people believed Bosch was a freedom fighter who shouldn't spend any time in jail.
No.
And this went all the way to the...
Trying to free the people of Cuba from Castro, the evil communist.
Right? Exact. My honey knows the jargon.
Ah,
It's like you lived through it.
I didn't, but
Yeah, you did. You were aware enough in the late 80s, too. Like, that was enough of an impact.
that's fair, yeah.
Yeah. It was still pretty hard, like 87 to, 89.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's 3 years when we were young where...
it got in there.
Yeah, for sure. Just not as bad as if we were, brought up in the 60s,
No.
50s.
Living in Miami versus Canada.
That, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, his following went really high because it went all the way to the governor of friggin' Florida, because it's Florida,
Yeah. Florida is where most Cuban immigrants wind up.
Yeah.
So, of course, the governor has an opinion.
Yeah, because even if he doesn't, it's votes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And this guy's name, Claude Kirk Jr. Claude Kirk. His name is fucking Claude Kirk Jr.
Who hated him? Like,
That's Claude Kirk.
I really didn't want to have this kid, so we're going to name him Claude Kirk.
A Claude Kirk sounds like a very bad biscuit.
It sounds like a weird horse poop.
Weird potato.
Yeah.
Kirk Jr. was obviously, he was an ardent anti-communist, because you didn't see that coming, did
No.
you? No, of course not.
An American who's an anti-communist?
Right. And he personally advocated for Bosch's early release, and because of this, he was freed after serving only 4 years.
That's actually longer than I would have expected. I figured they would have gotten him out in like a year and a half.
Oh my god. Now, as a little side note, you know the Kent State shootings.
Yes.
Do you know the famous picture where there's the guy with obviously his face blown off and there's the girl leaning over? Claude Kirk Jr. was such a dick that he literally said about that woman, Marianne Vicino, I think is her name. He said that she was a communist. She was obviously a communist.
What? Why?
Yep. Just because, anyone involved with that protest was a communist, so she was obviously a communist. Yeah. One of those, we throw it everywhere. Now, by this time, Bosch had become so focused and single-minded with his hatred of Castro, his wife divorced him while he was in prison.
Boo-hoo.
Which, good on you.
Yeah.
I hope you took the kids, which she did, because this guy's this guy's fucking violent and crazed and just...
He's not daddy material.
He is not, and that's just it.
Right.
Literally, his hatred of Castro will consume everything. Because the thing I like, despite all his support and whatnot, he does die totally alone, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shocker.
I mean, some of his family, his kids kind of rally around, but, I think his kids are around, but I like to think he died alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. After he was released from prison, Bosch continued his terrorist acts, and if anything, the early to mid-70s may have been the most active for the anti-Castro groups.
Yeah.
Just happened. 60s were the warm-up.
Yeah.
We're into the 70s now.
I mean, we went from marijuana hippie generation to cocaine, disco.
Right, marijuana and, dabbling with some LSD and blowing your mind a little that way to, I'm going to do cocaine because it's better than alcohol because it doesn't give you a hangover.
Ugh.
And then, 5 years into that, you're literally a fucking walking corpse.
Hey!
I'm an empath.
Looks good on you.
It never does.
No, it really doesn't.
Extortion of local businesses increased, bombings happened more frequently, and the targets became more and more civilian. In 1973, just a year after he was released, Bosch was already bragging that he had conducted multiple bomb attacks on consulates around the world since being released.
What?
Yeah.
Of course he was.
But that's the kind of dick this guy is. Not even bragging about the stuff he did, but being like, oh yeah, since I was released, I'm still doing it, cause just he's really
he really doesn't have any fucking fear of repercussions.
Of course he doesn't though, because
right. Well,
why would you?
Real.
Yeah, he already got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone seems behind him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's right in his mind.
Yeah.
Because evil communist Castro.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard it.
But eventually he went a little too far, and in 1974 he was forced to flee the country. Funny thing was, it wasn't for terrorist acts. In April of that year, Jose Elias de la Torrente, a prominent Cuban-American businessman, was murdered at his home for not being supportive enough of the anti-Castro movement.
Well, you're either one crew or you're against one crew.
Right, and apparently he was against one crew because he ended up very dead. Yes. Bosch was quickly suspected of being involved in the murder, and he quickly fled to Venezuela, as in 2 days after the murder, he's out of the country like, going on vacation. And he was helped out of the country by one of his oldest friends, Luis Posada. Bosch had met Posada, a fellow Cuban exile, while he was training at Fort Benning. This guy was definitely trained at the School of Americas.
Right.
Yes, he totally was. Both men had felt that they should use any means necessary to overthrow, the Castro regime, because any means necessary, you're one crew or you're against one crew.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And this would lead to the pair becoming friends and helpful allies throughout their lives. Though similar in outlook and ideology, Posada was the polar opposite of Bosch in temperament. While Bosch was a bombastic bragger that delighted in showing off his terrorist acts, especially to authorities, Posada was much more reserved and well thought out in what he got involved in.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, Posada, he kind of, and you'll see in one instance later, he just kind of looks at Bosch like a crazed fucking maniac. You're on my side and you usually do stuff I'm down with, but every now and then I'm just like, whoa, fucking hell.
You know that bazooka stunt? Maybe not that.
No, he's fine with that.
Yeah.
The bazooka was fine. The murder in this guy was fine. Yeah. You'll see. So when Bosch was suspected of murdering De La Torriente, Posada was in Venezuela, a sanctuary for anti-Castro Cubans. But he wasn't just hiding out there. Posada had actually landed a position as the head of the country's friggin' intelligence agency.
Nice.
Yeah, the DISIP, which, that could be an episode too, the Argentinian secret police. Woof. Yeah. But through these contacts, Posada had no problem getting Bosch out of Miami and into Venezuela. DISIP? DISIP, yep.
The DISIP.
It's the DISIP.
You saw me drawing it out in the air.
I did.
Mentally laughing at the acronym name. DISIP.
Now, Bosch, of course, didn't take any time off once he was out of the U.S., and on October 10th, 1974, Cuba's Independence Day, he bombed the Panamanian embassy in Caracas just after Cuban officials were scheduled to arrive. So he shows up in Venezuela and he's instantly trying to bomb Cuban officials coming to the country because, fuck you, I'm Orlando Bloom.
I mean...
Orlando Bosch, but still, we're Orlando Bloom. He's a complete pirate character.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Bosch probably would have gotten away with this bombing too, but in total character, he fucking bragged about it so much that the police were forced to basically arrest him. Like, they had to. They had to. He's being so loud about,
He won't shut up about doing it.
I bombed it. I was trying to kill him. Fuck you. I'll do it again. So,
oh my god. This guy, man.
the Venezuelan government, they didn't want him. They offered to extradite Bosch to the U.S., but the U.S. refused and he was simply released.
Well, we don't want him either.
Yeah, we don't want to deal with this.
Yeah. Nobody wants the weird potato.
Nobody wants this fucking idiot. Except Bosch then moved to Chile. And according to the Chilean government, he was living quietly as an artist under an assumed name for a couple years while he was there.
What kind of artist?
A painter.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it was painting. Yep. And during this time, he took the downtime to marry a woman 20 years younger than him.
As one does.
Call me daddy, baby.
No.
He calls me daddy, I call him baby. Everyone around us vomits.
Yeah.
But more reliable sources said Bosch was back to one of his favorite pastimes, sending letter bombs to literally everyone he could. And that's how he spent his little bit of off time in Chile.
Yeah.
And this downtime really didn't last long. And by 1976, Bosch was involved in another crazy-ass act of terrorism. This time he was arrested in Costa Rica in February 1976, presumably there to try to kill U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Bosch had done this completely independently, and this is evident because the tip that alerted the authorities to Bosch's plan and his presence to the fact that he was in Costa Rica came from his friend and longtime colleague, Luis Posada. This is one of the times he looked at Bosch and was like,
Wait a minute.
that's too far, bud. So he actually called in the tip, and they remain friends and whatnot. Like, I don't know if Bosch ever knows that.
That's funny.
But I just found that, like, yeah, no, fuck.
Yeah. My buddy's about to do something that's too far.
This is too much.
Yeah.
I know you guys like him as the anti-Castro and whatnot, but this
Too far.
might be one toe over the line.
A little bit.
Now, Bosch later claimed that his target wasn't Kissinger, but was in fact Andres Pascal Allende, the nephew of former Chilean President Salvador Allende, but this is questionable. He's probably trying to kill them both, because he's an asshole.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And there's a whole thing, if you really want to get into the Allende and the Pinochet regime, that will someday be an episode, because in very short, Allende was a socialist president who was elected in I think, 71, and the country likes him, but business interests don't, and they literally, Pinochet is really backed by the U.S. to the point that there are ships full of advisors there when Pinochet troops kill Allende, and Pinochet's Chile is one of the worst of South America, like, disappearing people, just gone, torturing. They use the National Soccer Stadium as a torture center. And it lasts a long fucking time.
That
so,
sucks.
yeah.
I mean, soccer is a form of torture, but...
It's not like getting your balls electrocuted.
Exactly.
Fucking while standing at the 18-yard line.
Yeah.
Yeah. After being questioned, the Costa Rican authorities offered to extradite Bosch to America to face charges. But again...
We don't want the weird potato.
They do not want the weird potato. And the U.S. declined the offer, and Bosch was extradited to the Dominican Republic instead.
Well, gotta send him somewhere.
You have to send him somewhere. And a big part of that was Chile or Venezuela would take Bosch, but Costa Rica knew Bosch wouldn't be charged if they sent him to Venezuela or fucking Chile. So they decided, let's try the Dominican.
Yeah.
How bad can it be? Well, it was while Bosch was in the Dominican Republic that he started his most notorious terrorist group, CORU, Coordination of United Revolution Organizations, which is the worst name for a group I've ever heard. It was basically an umbrella group in contact with a number of anti-Castro organizations, and it's through CORU that Bosch hit his pinnacle of crazy-ass 1970s terrorism. Get ready. Because it's through... I'm going to call it CORU, because that's just so much easier.
Yeah. He's in his zone, is he?
He really gets into... I wonder, I'm not saying it's... How much cocaine is in Miami at the time, too?
Oh, God.
Because it seems everything really gets amped up here in a way that I'm not saying or trying to make accusations, but Jesus, things get really cokey here. Now, overall, the mid-70s was the height of anti-Castro bombings, and by 1975, it wasn't uncommon for multiple bombs to go off in Miami in the same day.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that bad.
No, me either.
Miami was a bit wild.
But I didn't know it was fucking nuts.
It's a fucking madhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ, man.
It's estimated that over 40% of all terrorist bombings in the mid-70s were done by anti-Castro terrorists.
That's a lot.
And this was punctuated in December 1975 when 13 bombs went off around Miami in a 48-hour period. 13 bombs in 2 days.
That's quite a few.
These bombings targeted the airport, the police department, the FBI's main office in the city.
Jesus.
And before many of the bombs went off, the media, or sometimes the places targeted, got a phone call before the bombs actually went off.
Guess what? There's a bomb in there.
Nope, even worse. When answered, these calls would play the beginning of a Simon and Garfunkel song called
Jesus.
If I Could, also called El Condor Pasa, after a Peruvian folk song.
That's just cruel and unusual punishment.
The lyrics of the song? I'd rather be a hammer than a nail. Yes, I would if I could. And also, really quick, the mention of Condor there. Operation Condor was a big CIA thing in Central America at the time that basically controlled Bolivia, Argentina, and somebody else at the time. A lot of just really nastiness. But this was just a warm-up. This was the opening act for 1976.
Just to get started.
I mean, you have to have the warm-up act.
Right? Just playing.
You can't just start off with the main act.
Right.
You know. During the year, Koryu was involved in a machine gun attack on the Cuban embassy in Colombia,
Who hasn't been?
the assassination of a Cuban official in Mexico, the kidnapping of 2 Cuban embassy workers in Argentina, the bombing of the Guyanese embassy in Trinidad, and the bombing of the Panama City offices of Cubana Airlines, which is the national airline of Cuba, all in 1976. And in September 1976, Koryu committed what was, to that point at least, their most spectacular act, the assassination of Orlando Letelier. Letelier had been the Chilean diplomat to the U.S. under the Allende regime, and after the overthrow by Pinochet, he was jailed and tortured for over a year.
I mean.
Yeah, so they just... shocking those testicles.
Yeah, we don't like this guy.
No. And yeah, in Chile, it's a lot of shock. Yeah. They like their electricity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've stalked those movies too.
Ugh. Burdella special.
Yeah.
We will do a big 2-parter on
yeah.
Bob Burdella.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Now, for some reason, Letelier was actually released by the Chilean secret police, and he moved to Washington, D.C. in 1974. And obviously, he became one of Pinochet's loudest and most vocal critics. He was also a good writer, so he was influential. You know, he got it across how fucking terrible this was going. Now, this criticism made him a huge target for everyone involved. The CIA's pissed at him. Every right-wing dictatorship, especially Chile, is a little bit pissed off. You know, they don't like that they can't crush him because he's not there.
Yeah.
He's D.C. It's kind of hard to get to him, you would think.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Funny about that. So in early September 1976, Bosch attended a fundraising dinner in Caracas, Venezuela, which was attended by most of the high rollers in Venezuelan politics. According to a CIA memo, Bosch spent most of the night trying to extort contributions to Koryu, and he even promised he would abstain from attacks in the U.S. if the government gave him money. This is early September 1976. Now, it doesn't seem like anyone took him up on the offer, because he only made $500 that night.
Oof.
So the shakedown doesn't work.
I've done better in a day selling paintings, so that's not great.
He's at a massive government function trying to basically shake them down for his terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Well, less than 3 weeks later, Bosch decided he would go through with his threat, just to show.
Yeah.
I wasn't fucking around.
I mean, you guys should have known I wasn't fucking around. Have you met me?
I got a homemade fucking bazooka in my trunk.
Right,
Torpedoes hooked to the back.
Jesus fuck Christ.
Nobody fucking wants the potato. Pass them around. Oh, God. So on the morning of September 21st, 1976, in Washington, D.C., Pelletier was driving to work with Ronnie Moffat, a fellow critic of Pinochet, and her husband, Michael. As they drove down Sheraton Circle in fucking Embassy Row, which I didn't even look up, but it's called Embassy Row. I'm assuming this is...
Embassy Row.
Yeah, this isn't some backwater of Washington, D.C. where you get, like, a bunch of crack and a $10 blowjob.
No.
You know? So at about 9:30, while driving down Embassy Row, a bomb exploded under the driver's seat.
Oops.
With these three inside. The blast was so powerful that it lifted the car off the ground and it blew a hole in the floor that was fucking 2 feet in diameter. Michael
That's
Moff...
a Flintstones car.
Kind of. It sort of is, but...
It's also kind of mushy.
Pelletier's not going to be running very far.
No.
No. Now, Michael Moffat, who had been sitting in the back seat, was the least injured of the three, and he escaped the car through the car's back window. While he was trying... Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
Now, while he was trying to figure out what the fuck happened, because...
Yeah.
Shock. Just the shock of the blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a car, your first thought is, were we in a car accident? Not, did we blow the fuck up?
Right. Although if it lifts you off the ground, that might be a bit like...
Did a sewer blow up under us? Like, I
don't think bomb. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even something that weird, you're not going to be like...
Yeah.
But then again, you know this guy's... I don't know.
Yeah.
I never thought of that, but things I'll never have to worry about. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't piss that many people off.
Yet.
We're getting there.
Orlando Bloom may be coming for us after this one.
Sorry, bud.
Yeah, we don't mean it.
You were great in Pirates.
Yeah.
So while Michael was trying to figure out what the fuck happened, he saw his wife walk past him. She was stumbling a bit, but she seemed fine moving away from the car, so he went towards the car to see, you know, how fucking, Lechplay was. So he went over. He thought he could help. He kind of grabbed Lechplay. He said he was still conscious when he got to the car, but his eyes were just rolling, and he tried to talk, but it was just incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Michael reached for Pelletier and tried to pull him from the car, but he found he couldn't. Pelletier had been blown nearly in half in the explosion, and most of his lower torso was just missing.
Oh.
The remains of his legs were also so intermingled with the remains of the car that Michael could not pull him out. Yeah, so just a mangled mess of human legs and
car pieces.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Michael had also been wrong about his wife, who was definitely not okay and just stunned.
Yeah.
Her larynx and carotid artery had been cut by a piece of shrapnel during the explosion, and she would die in hospital less than an hour later when she drowned on her own blood.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Everyone's having a bad day.
Oh, yeah.
And this assassination brought Koryu a lot of press. Americans had only recently become aware of basically Pinochet and what was happening in Chile, and this guy Lecce had been a big voice in that. So this kind of got them a lot of press, which might not be the greatest thing, but Bosch is an idiot. Bosch, for his part, basically said whatever the terrorist equivalent of "hold my drink" is. Bosch would later explain, quote, "Terrorism is a necessary evil in the fight against Castro. There are times when you cannot avoid harming innocent people." And just a month later, Bosch showed how far he was really willing to go in his single-minded quest to overthrow Castro. As he put it, now that our organization has come out of the Lecce job looking good, we are now going to try something else. And that something else was the murder of 73 people by bombing a Cuban civilian airliner. In October 1976, Bosch created what I would call his White Album, or OK Computer, or take your pick of... Because he went from, I'm just going to bomb this and that, to, fuck that plane. Fuck it with every fucking one in it. I'm blowing it out of the sky. Through Koryu, he and his old friend Luis Posada planned the bombing of Cubana Flight 455, a flight from Trinidad and Tobago to Barbados to Jamaica. In June 1976, Koryu had attempted to blow up the same flight with a suitcase bomb in Jamaica, but the bomb went off before it was loaded on the plane.
Whoops.
Now, you might think that might be a heads up. You know.
Excuse me.
Mine's been drinking the whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the toilet whiskeys.
Yes. My hidden flash.
Now, this did alert authorities that Flight 455 might be a target for terrorist bombing, and documents released decades later showed that the U.S. was not only aware of the threat, they knew of concrete plans to bomb the flight. But because this, it was the Cold War, and it was Castro, and he's a commie bastard, no warning whatsoever was given to, Cuba, the country, or the actual airline. Anything like that. Oh, yeah, we found plans that someone really wants to blow one of your planes up.
Yeah.
This flight, this route. Jesus fucking Christ. So on October 6, 1976, Koryu got the bombing right on their second try. 20-year-old Hernan Ricardo and his friend, 27-year-old Freddie Lugo, boarded Cubana Flight 455 in Trinidad, using papers supplied mostly from Koryu. Ricardo carried with him 2 C4 bombs, one concealed in the body of a camera, one hidden in a toothpaste tube. Despite being incredibly nervous, Ricardo was able to set up the camera bomb under a seat not long after takeoff. So, you take off, just kind of slide the camera under. And when this was finished, he went to the rear restroom to plant the toothpaste bomb. Apparently, this bomb was just a little more complicated because nothing went smoothly in the bathroom. After setting up the toothpaste bomb, Ricardo somehow managed to jam the door shut. A stewardess tried to force the door, but he had it so stuck that she had to call the co-pilot, who had to leave the cockpit, come to the back restroom, and literally kick the door open to release Ricardo.
Brilliant.
The guy who just set 2 bombs on the plane that he shortly...
Genius.
Yep.
Quality level work there.
This... that is professionalism at work. You trapped yourself in the room that you just set up a bomb. Like, seriously. You just fused
I
up
want to know
that
if it's
fucker.
his fault that he got trapped in there at the end of the day. Because I have had a bathroom door lock break, like a doorknob issue.
Yeah, that's true,
I've
too.
been trapped in a bathroom.
Yeah, so have I. Yep, as an
For
adult.
Hours.
Yep.
Yeah, as an adult.
Yep, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does suck. I wasn't for hours, but...
I was the only person in the house. My parents had to drive from another province to come let me out of the bathroom. And my dad had to literally take the door off the hinges from the other side because the doorknob was so fucked.
I know the story because this is one of the stories we bonded over.
Yeah, it was Christmas too.
Yeah, not that long before when I had lived in the north end of Halifax, the doorknob broke while I was in it. And I was working basically construction, and my roommate was... I think he's in PhD fucking physics and math now. And there we are on the opposite side of the door saying, we're fucking idiots because we can't figure this one out. I might be trapped in here for life. Like,
Yeah.
What's the combined intelligence of both of us? Apparently not much. It was a fun day. The rest of the hour-long flight to Barbados was uneventful, and after landing, Ricardo and Lugo got off the plane along with a few other people. A few other very lucky people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My question about all this, though, why is Lugo even there?
Right?
Is he just, I want to support my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. He just shows up to go on the flight. I don't understand it. Whatever. When Flight 455 took off for Jamaica a short time later, there were 73 people on board, including 24 members of Cuba's national fencing team, which was basically a bunch of people in their like teenagers and late or early 20s, like so, young people.
Right.
Yep. Between 9 and 11 minutes after taking off, Flight 455 was rocked by an explosion after reaching a height of 18,000 feet, or about 6,000 meters. The pilot radioed back to the tower exclaiming, quote, "We have an explosion on board. We're descending fast. We have a fire on board." These aren't things you ever want to hear a pilot exclaiming.
Not a good day.
No. Just after this transmission, a second explosion crippled the plane, making it totally fucking uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Flight 455 then went into a steep dive, and the co-pilot got off one last radio call to the tower, just to horrify everyone. Quote, "We have a total emergency." That was it. Which I'm sure was just screamed.
Oh, yeah.
From the beach in front of the Paradise Hotel, onlookers watched in horror as the flight fell from the sky, struck the sea 5 miles from shore, and sunk in 1,800 feet of water.
Oh, that's a lot of water.
There obviously were no survivors. After disembarking from the flight, Ricardo and his friend, they went to a local hotel and they called the major players of Koryu, including Orlando Bosch and Posada, and they let them know that the bombing had been successful.
We did it!
Yeah, we got it. They also added for good measure an incredibly shitty code. Quote, "The bus was full of pigs."
Jesus Christ.
That was their quote about the bomb. The plane they just bombed.
Nice guys.
Quality.
Yeah.
Quality.
Quality time.
Ricardo and his friend then flew to Trinidad and checked into another hotel using fake names, but they acted so suspiciously that both the cab driver who drove them from the airport and the front desk staff at the hotel called the police about them. That's pretty suspicious.
Yeah. You done fucked up.
Are you openly talking about planting a bomb?
A little bit.
Not long after, the police arrived and arrested the two on suspicion of being the bombers of Cubana Flight 455. Just a week after the bombing, Bosch was arrested in Caracas on October 13th, along with Luis Posada. Documents show that they had been involved in the planning of the bombing, but the authorities treated Posada and Bosch like royalty while they were being held.
Wow, of course.
Yeah, but they were allowed to order from their favorite restaurants, complete with fucking liquor, while they were technically being held for a terrorist attack of a civilian fucking flight.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Like, Jesus, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Now, Castro obviously called it all out. Like, this was obviously done by some terrorist group backed by the CIA. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know. Multiple countries were interested in prosecuting those involved in the bombing, but because the plan had been made in Venezuela, they decided they had jurisdiction. But it seemed like they had no idea what the fuck they were doing, because it would take until August 1977 for anything to start moving in the case. Koryu reacted to the arrest of the two most important members of its group with predictable rage.
What?
Yeah. In the next 14 months after the arrest, bombs went off in Venezuelan airline offices and consulates in Miami and all around the Caribbean. Originally, the case went to civilian court, where the judge misplaced key court records and fucked around for 10 months before deciding the civilian court has no jurisdiction over this.
Obviously not.
On August 25th, the case was referred to a military tribunal, and the four co-conspirators, the bombers and Posada and Bosch, were all charged with treason.
I mean,
I don't know how exactly they come to treason instead of, 73 murders, but,
yeah.
Then it took 3 freaking years for the military court to bring the charges to trial, and in 1980, all 4 were found not guilty of being involved in the bombing.
Of course.
Yeah. Posada and Bosch, they were found guilty of using false papers, and they were sentenced to 4.5 months in prison. So
That's reasonable.
it doesn't seem that reasonable to me, but
No, it's
maybe I'm not a reasonable person.
fucking ridiculous, honestly.
Now, Bosch and Posada were held as the verdict was appealed, because in the 4.5 months, fuck you.
That's too long.
I'm a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
And once again, it would take years for anything to move in the case.
Oh my god.
Seriously, this process took so long that Bosch pulled an unbelievable amount of support from the anti-Castro crowd in Miami. Because now it just looks like they're holding him and dragging it out.
Well, yeah, because
you're
4.5 months. Now we're talking years of arguing over this.
Exactly. It's yeah. Even the mayor at the time showed his support by declaring an official Orlando Bosch Day in Miami.
Oh my god.
On March 25th,
Fucking ridiculous.
1983.
The man who shot a fucking bazooka off the bridge gets a goddamn day.
In Miami.
Oh.
While he was still waiting for the outcome of the charges
Oh my god.
that had been laid for the bombing of the plane 6 years before. He got his own fucking day.
It's ridiculous.
That is nuts.
That's...
I don't even know what to begin to say about that.
Yeah. I don't know where to go with that. That's amazing.
Amazeballs. Later in 1983, the military court finally looked at the situation and said, why the fuck are we dealing with this case? How is this military?
Yeah.
And they passed it back to the civilian court to handle. Yeah, after all that, they bounced it back to the civilian court. Bosch, ever defiant, delayed the case even further by refusing to appear before civilian court. So he's just being difficult about it now.
I'm a soldier.
Yeah, that was his whole thing. You nailed it. You knew. In 1985, Bosch... Shit. Okay, that's where I screwed up last time. I screwed this up while I was writing it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
In 1985, Luis Posada got tired of waiting around in prison to see what was going to happen, and he decided to make his move. He bribed a guard $50,000 for help, and he escaped prison by dressing as a priest, and he just snuck out.
Yeah, you know.
Right, so yeah. Later, Posada landed back in Miami and never had to face any further consequences for his role in the bombing. Nothing.
Makes sense.
And the funny thing is, honestly, if he had stuck around, he probably wouldn't have had to face any consequences anyway.
Yeah, right.
In 1986, Bosch was found not guilty on all charges and was free to go. The bombers, Ricardo and Lugo, they were both sentenced to 20 years.
At least somebody served some friggin' time.
Yeah.
But, Jesus Christ.
And in total, Bosch had technically been in prison for 11 years, waiting for the outcome of this fucking trial.
Which is ridiculous.
I hate this guy, but you can't do that to people.
No,
you
that's
can't.
insane.
Right, you need to get your charges before you, so you know what to do, and then, let things happen. You just can't do this.
No.
Bosch denied being involved in the bombing, obviously, stating Castro had, quote, accused me without evidence of being the intellectual author of the sabotage and many other acts with which I had nothing to do.
Which wasn't me.
No, not me. And this is obviously total fucking trash.
Oh, of course. But it wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Absolutely not. His true nature came out when he said that the bombing was, quote, a legitimate act of war. Yeah. And everyone on board deserved to die because, quote, they were all communists. That was it. They're all communists.
Yeah, so,
That was how he went about that.
Yeah.
And there's an amazing, I had to add some of this interview from 2006, so he was relatively late in life here, because he dies in 2011, I think in his 80s. So he's old, and he's talking pretty freely. So I'm going to light up a smoke and go through this, because this is fucking... really an insight into this asshole. Did you down the plane in 1976? Bosch, if I tell you that I was involved, I will be inculpating myself. And if I tell you that I did participate in that action, you would say that I am lying. I am therefore not going to answer one thing or the other. In that action, 76 persons were killed. It was actually 73, but that was the question. Bosch, no Chico, in a war such as us Cubans who love liberty wage against the tyrant, you have to down planes, you have to sink ships, you have to be prepared to attack anything that is within reach. But don't you feel a little bit for those who were killed there, for their families? Bosch, who was on board that plane? 4 members of the Communist Party, 5 North Koreans, 5 Guyanese. Concho Chico, 4 members of the Communist Party. Chico, who was there? Our enemies. And the fencers, that's the Cuban fencing team, the young people on board. Bosch, I saw the young girls on television. There were 6 of them. On the end of the competition, the leader of the 6 dedicated their triumph to the tyrant, etc. She gave a speech filled with praise for the tyrant. We had already agreed in Santo Domingo that everyone who comes from Cuba to glorify the tyrant had to run the same risks as those men and women that fight alongside the tyranny.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are one crew or you're against one crew.
Jesus. Pretty much. If you ran into the family members who were killed in that plane, wouldn't you think it difficult? Bosch. No, because in the end, those who were there had to know that they were cooperating with the tyranny in Cuba. That, to me, is the biggest insight into this piece of shit's mind. He won't even say Castro is the tyrant and the tyranny. He's talking about how he would tell the victims of people he blew out of the sky that, no, they deserve to die.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they gave him a fucking day in Miami after this. Jesus Christ. After being released, Bosch started pushing the U.S. government to give him a visa. Because why the fuck not?
Yeah,
I'm a
right.
good guy.
Yeah, let me stay.
He still had backing. He still had tons of backing. And this support went all the way to the U.S. ambassador in Venezuela, a dickhole named Otto Reich, who tried to obtain a visa for Bosch 3 separate times. He was turned down every time.
Good.
In February 1988, Bosch illegally entered the U.S. when he just flew to fucking Miami, and he was denied a visa multiple times once he was there. So he's just living illegally in America now. Fuck it, I'll do what I want. In a move that truly showed how different the climate towards terrorism in America was before 9/11, Bosch's supporters went into full swing to see that their plane bombing, car exploding, murderous fucking hero was freed from prison.
Wow.
And this wasn't a small-scale movement as, oh my God, the first Cuban-American woman to win a seat in Congress, Ileana Rose Lehtinen, used the cause of freeing Bosch as a major part of her campaign in 1989. And I mean fucking major. Her campaign manager, who was Jeb Bush, they raised over $265,000 for Bosch's defense fund.
Oh my God.
Some supporters went even further, and they threatened to bomb immigration offices around Miami if Bosch wasn't released. But these turned out to be idle threats.
Wow.
In January 1989, Bosch's application for asylum was rejected. Downright rejected.
What?
With the Associate U.S. Attorney General stating that, quote, Bosch had been resolute and unwavering in his advocacy for terrorist violence, and that he had demonstrated a willingness to cause indiscriminate injury and death. This is about as bad as can be said.
It's not flattering.
No, it's not. It's real, unless you're a terrorist that's shooting for that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're going
This
for,
is bad.
I guess.
That's and you're trying to get asylum.
Yeah.
You're not some guy in prison who's like, oh, this guy's the worst. You're being like, can I come into the country?
Yeah, right.
And they're like, you're the fucking worst terrorist.
Ever. No.
The local Miami FBI followed up by claiming Bosch was Miami's #1 terrorist. This is in the 80s.
Yeah.
When cocaine is rampant. They're saying, no, Bosch, way fucking worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know all that narco-terrorism bullshit? Nope.
You got nothing on this fucker.
The Justice Department then looked to deport Bosch, but 31 different countries refused him entry.
I mean, nobody wants the weird potato.
Thanks, but pass.
Yeah.
I really don't want anything to do with that fucking headache.
No.
And for a few years, Bosch just stayed like this. Like stuck in a limbo where America didn't want him. He wasn't there legally, but no other country would take him. The only other country that showed interest was Cuba. Because they wanted to skin him alive.
Well, yeah.
And obviously, that was not going to happen. But I found that funny that Cuba was like, we'll take him.
Yeah. I mean, you can send him here.
Right?
You want to come have a sleepover, buddy?
Now, the anti-Castro crowd, they're still so fucking crazy. They pressured the government to just release Bosch.
Yeah, just let him go.
Just let him go. It's fine. And what does this all comes to a head when President Bush the first, the one in the early 90s,
Right. Daddy Bush.
he obliged the anti-Castro crowd by going against the recommendations of his own Justice Department, and he personally authorized Bosch's release in July 1990. He was allowed to return to his home in Miami under a slew of conditions, which he instantly fucking he broke every condition as soon as he was out. But he was literally pardoned by the president.
Of course he was.
It's like Mateo when he says he got fucking sworn in by
Henderson.
President Henderson, one of the white ones. Yep. So he's just released, and here are your conditions, and he's just like, no.
No.
Despite all this, the U.S. government gave him another huge break 2 years later when the Bush administration granted him U.S. residency. So here you go. Not only are you free, you're an American.
Yeah. It's cool.
Bosch had to sign a document saying he renounced to being a psychoterrorist, and then he was sent on his way. And of course, being a shitbird, Bosch instantly went and bragged that he only signed it.
Of course.
Like, he's such a bragging shit. He's so...
Well, I just signed it so I'd get released. I didn't mean it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also said that every bit of documentation that showed his involvement in terrorist acts were, quote, the work of Castro's people.
Oh, of course.
Which is just, okay, I don't want to get too political, but we can look at a recent president and look at the disillusion you can make yourself see in order to obscure facts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the late 90s, Bosch, he was back to raising money to buy arms for anti-Castro groups. Yep, and he was also linked to the 1997 Cuba hotel bombing, although he denied any involvement, saying even if he had done it, he would still be denying it, since that's illegal in this country.
Right.
And that bombing killed one person and wounded, I think, a dozen. So, still a dickhole to the end.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it wasn't until 9/11 and the major shift in the perception of terrorism that Bosch finally eased up on his personal war with Castro and his braggery and all his bullshit. Also,
Well, I mean, now there might be consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that he's in his 70s now, and as he slowed down, his bombing war turned into an old man war as his stated goal, became to outlive Castro. So I just think of like Grandpa Simpson shaking his
Yelling
fist
at clouds. Yeah.
yelling at clouds.
That's fucking great.
And that's...
I just want to live longer than the fucker now.
Yep, and that's his goal now. And in the end, he failed at this too. Yep. He died a free man in Miami on April 27th, 2011, 5 years before Castro.
Womp womp.
Yep.
Sorry.
And the reaction to his death pretty much summed up his entire life and legacy. The Cuban anti-Castro crowd lauded him as a hero and had public displays of mourning, whereas everyone connected to reality saw it as the death of, quote, the hemisphere's most notorious terrorist.
Yeah.
And that is the long-ass story of Orlando Bosch. He was a lot. He could have been more. He could have been a two-parter.
He was a lot.
There were parts I could have definitely spieled off
Oh, yeah.
And there was still hilarity. Like, there are things I just glossed over where it was like, his time in Chile, he sent fucking, oh man, just painting and sending mail bombs and going for women 20 years younger than me.
Yeah. He was just having a great old time.
Jesus Christ.
Vacation in Chile.
But yeah, I mean, how nuts is this dude? Like,
Wow, this is fucking insane.
any one of those acts
Right?
should be enough to land you in jail for quite a while.
Yeah.
And here he is, torpedoes through rush hour traffic, bazookas off the bridge, explosives in the hospital, bombing planes, blowing up cars. I mean, he's got it all.
Yeah.
So if you like that story, feel free to rate a review on iTunes or Spotify or follow us and all that. Or tell people about us, because we're all horrible, broken people if you're listening to this and enjoying it. You know? And we still have our producer, Mickey Gorman, which is very, very nice. So another shout out to Mickey, because...
Yay.
Hey, Mickey! And until next time, play safe and have fun.
Bye.
Bye. You can email us at mentalillnesstheater@gmail.com. And you can find us on social media at Mental Illness Theater, The Worst on Facebook, Mental Illness Theater on Patreon, and Unicorn Holes on Instagram.